So always trust your gut, girls. Always. Never, never, never ignore your gut instinct. Ever. I have gut feelings about things now, and they practically guide me through my entire life. Hello guys, and welcome back to another episode of Coming Up for Air with myself, Lou. I hope we're all okay. I have decided that I'm going to probably start recording these more often on Friday because I feel like I said obviously in my last week's episode, I can debrief my entire week. I have more to talk about. I don't just have the weekend to talk about, I can talk about my week. And I obviously have to listen back and edit these episodes. And I realised that last week I was like, I'm doing 10,000 steps a day. I'll talk to you about that in a sec. I don't think I ever spoke to you about it. So I'm going to start off this week's episode because I have been awake since 5:45 this morning. I'm going to start off this week's episode talking to you about the 10 steps a day because when I went through my breakup, I was out all the time walking. And I'm going to tell you a little story now that might make you laugh. So where I used to live, it used to be near the woods, and we've got like a big woods in my town, and I lived probably about, I'd say, a 10-minute walk away from being in like the centre of nowhere. And I used to take myself out on hot girl walks, but they were broken-hearted walks, broken-hearted girl walks. I used to take myself to the woods, switch my headphones on and just switch off, whether I'd be listening to a podcast or listening to a playlist, probably a sad playlist. I would just switch off. And I always say, and I even say it now to be fair, when I turn my headphones on, world out. And I did that a lot, and I walked a lot, and I spent a lot of time walking because my house made me feel claustrophobic on an extreme level. And I was chatting to my mum the other day, and she was like, do you remember when your ex used to come around and he used to call me and say I need to get out of the house? Because I never liked it when he had been to the house either. It just felt off and eerie. Anyway, I spent a long time walking. I haven't been back to those woods since I've moved. I've moved to the other side of my town now, and I am blessed because I've got the countryside literally on my doorstep that I can just walk straight out into the countryside. I haven't been back to those woods as often as I used to go there. When I used to do my like runs and stuff, I was quite lucky because I could run into the woods. However, obviously now I run into the countryside, but whatever. About 3 or 4 months ago, I ended up in the woods because I was like, I'm going to go on a big fat walk, so I'm going to incorporate walking in the woods. Went into the woods, had my headphones on, and it was the middle of the day. It was sunny, and I was terrified. Like, I was actually terrified. I thought, I need to take my headphones out because I don't know who's behind me. Not at any point do I remember throughout my breakup having that thought process. I was so distracted, so like unaware of how I was feeling, how like my surroundings were making me feel. I just needed to be out of the house, thinking about something else. I didn't think about the fact that someone could be following me. I mean, it's me, worst case scenario brain all the time, and the fact that I grew up watching horror films and sat and terrified myself the other night watching something on Netflix. I got back from the walk. I cut it short. I didn't enjoy it, and I got in my car and I thought, that felt very strange. And then when I think I messaged my friend saying I had not been aware of how much I suffered and how much I struggled with so much that it reflected in the fact that I would literally put myself in the woods and not be scared because I was so desperate to find a release. And I'd forgotten how much exercise I did. That was just a funny little anecdote that I got back in my car, and now I'm like, if I go to the woods, I'm probably not going to switch myself off and put my headphones in. Plus, I used to walk across a golf course. And like, I don't know, I was obviously just really going through it in order for me to be so blasé about walking in the woods. I used to walk down there at night as well. Wild behaviour. It just goes to show like the level of like how much you do struggle because you are not thinking about like certain things. And I'm not saying I was unsafe in that woods, but I don't know. When I went back there, I was a bit like, oh my God, I feel quite unsafe with my headphones in. I need to keep my headphones out. So anyway, I also obviously talk really openly about how much it impacted my eating, how much like I went to war with myself. And I was looking back on photographs the other day, and I am a skinny version of myself. And I hadn't really realized how skinny I was through lack of eating, but also from the fact that like my legs, I mean, I carry all my weight in my legs, my thighs, my bum. I have the biggest bum in the world. And like I've got wide hips, and I am quite, well, I think I match pretty much, but I carry a lot of my weight in like the lower half of my body. And these photos of me from, going on walks in the mirror, and obviously because I was posting on my running account like nothing had happened, my legs are getting slimmer and slimmer and slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. And I'm like, oh my God, looking at these photos, I'm like, oh, well, I didn't eat for a while properly. I lived on pasta and cheese, and cheese and onion crisps and a banana. That's basically what I used to eat, and occasionally a crumpet if I wasn't really that hungry. Really bad, unhealthy relationship with food came out of my breakup. Anyway, I now have realised by doing this 10,000 steps a day, sorry, getting back to my original point, we went around the houses there, that it wasn't the lack of food that made me skinny. It was the walking that I did, because doing this 10,000 steps a day, I obviously run, I work out, I do Pilates every day, I do at least half an hour Pilates class a day. I was thinking, why is my body not toning up quicker? Obviously, I know I'm 32. It does get harder as you get older. I appreciate that. But I have seen results quicker before. And let me tell you this. If you want to tone your legs up and you want to feel like your legs are getting stronger and feel, when you put on a pair of leggings, you think, oh, they don't look the same as they did 2 weeks ago. Bearing in mind, I've only been doing this for 3 weeks. 10,000 steps a day, that's where it's at. Nothing has toned my legs up quicker than walking 10,000 steps a day. And my God, is it hard? Like, I am not saying that it's easy. I do 5 miles. I do 3 miles in the morning, 2 miles in the evening, or 2 miles in the morning, 3 miles in the evening. I also take my running into that. So if I'm running that day, then I'll take that step count into the total of the amount of steps. But it is difficult. It is hard. Finding the time is hard. I've found it quite difficult. Today's Friday. I've been out for a 3-mile walk this morning. I've got about 6,500 steps in. I need to do another 2 miles. I've got a really busy day. I'm probably just going to end up walking to the pub and back, like I said I was going to the other week and never ended up doing it. But I am going to try and do that. You kind of have to think like, okay, where am I going to get this in? Where am I going to get that in? You have to plan your day around it. And for me, I've started getting up early. I mean, I was an early bird anyway, but I woke up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to go out. I'm just going to go for a walk at 5:30. And then come back, it's 6:30, and then you've got the whole day then. But yeah, so I have found it difficult, but the reason why I've continued and carried on going with it is because I'm really noticing a difference. Now, I'm not saying it's making my legs skinnier, but it is definitely toning them up. I can tell, like I said, when I've put on a pair of leggings, I've been like, oh, my legs feel a little bit more toned. So I just wanted to do a little roundup of that because, like I said, I definitely said I was going to do it in the last week's episode, and I just didn't. I think I just glazed over it and then got probably talking about something else. We all know that I get very distracted on these podcast episodes sometimes. So yeah, I just wanted to do like a little catch up because currently at the moment, I mean, I get asked all the time what I eat in a day. And I always say I am never going to do a what I eat in the day video because I find them extremely triggering. I get fixated on food and fixated on like how someone looks against like what they eat in a day. Sometimes I eat really healthily, sometimes I don't really eat, sometimes I overeat, you know, and like I think it's great for when people are following like food accounts and stuff, but for me and my head it's just not healthy, therefore I'm not going to put that sort of content out there. But I also get asked what exercises I do, and I always say, because they see me on my running account, they just think that I stay in shape by running. I don't. I actually don't like my shape when I'm running. So I do half an hour of minimum Pilates every single day. If I know that I'm not going to work out, I will double up a class, and so that I do a minimum of 6 half an hour workouts a week. I always try and give myself one day off. This week it was Monday because I went out on bank holiday Sunday and got a little bit drunk and was nursing a hangover on Monday. But I also think that rest days are really, really important as well. And I think often people think that they can't have a day off, and that, when you get into a toxic cycle of like losing weight, I've been there, you think that the minute that you open your mouth and you put half a dairy milk chocolate bar in your mouth, you're going to gain 7 million stone. I've done that toxic thing. I've been in that toxic cycle, and sometimes I do have to like pin myself to the sofa and be like, no, Lou, sit down, chill out. You hit it so hard, like 10,000 steps a day. Someone messaged me like, I do that because I've got a dog and I've got kids and I'm running after the kids and the dogs and all the rest of it. And like, okay, great. But there are people out there that sit at a desk for 8 hours a day and they can't get up and, from their desk and go on an hour's lunch, like an hour's walk on their lunch break. When I used to work at the demolition firm, I used to get half an hour break. What are you getting in 2 miles, but where are you eating? Like it is hard, and people think that it's so easy. And that's the reason why I wanted to do it, because I genuinely think someone has randomly plucked 10,000 steps out of thin air. I am going to decrease it to 8,000 miles and see if that has the same effect, because I think that the more I go forward with this, the more I can see myself becoming a little bit fixated with it. I have a very addictive personality, and I become easily drawn in and obsessed with things quite easily. And I think that's the only reason why I'm still a runner, and I'm still going out and running 3 times a week, because I wouldn't say obsessed, because that makes me sound like I'm a little bit insane, but like I become fixated on things, and I always want to do things in the best possible way and like to the best of my abilities. But I can see myself kind of becoming a little bit like addicted to getting 10,000 steps in a day, which I don't want to do because it is unhealthy, but it is healthy at the same time. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a rundown, because genuinely with my life and the way that I live my life and how busy I am, I'm not out of the house all the time. I understand that people have to get out the house all the time, obviously, to go to work, to commute and all the rest of it. But I am fortunate in the fact that like I am based at home. So, and I'm at home a lot. So I do have the benefits of like finding the time easier that way. But I think that if you are serious about doing something, you would incorporate it into your life. You have to get serious about doing certain things. It's like almost like you have to get serious about creating boundaries, and you have to get serious about self-love. You have to get serious about these things. And I think if you need to wake up a little bit earlier or wake up an hour earlier a day, like why isn't that possible? Why aren't you going to bed an hour earlier so you can get up an hour earlier in the morning? Like I struggle sometimes with people when they say I haven't got time, and I will be the first person that says I'm so busy, I've not got time. But I mean it in jest, because I think if you are passionate about doing something, especially where might sound quite militant now, but like especially when something is annoying you or is a bugbear, like I want to lose weight or I want to tone up my legs. For me, for example, like I'm looking at photographs of myself and I'm like, why do my legs not look like that anymore? And then I've realized it's because I used to do all the walking. I know that I can change something about myself, then I'm going to try and change something about myself, because that's what I want to do. If you want to learn something new, like learn a new language, get on the whatever that app is to learn languages in an hour extra in the day. You've learned something. You want to start a business, you get up early and you do it. You have to be passionate about something. You have to find your passion in something in order to want to be able to do something like that, or put an hour aside in the evening. I'm probably more productive in the morning than I am in the evening, but I can stay up really late because I survive off of like minimum 4 hours sleep a night. I'm a little bit crazy like that. I always have been. But then, every couple of months I will crash. I'll get tonsillitis, I'll get something. And it's my way of my body being like, okay, you've done 3 months of being on the ball. Can we chill out now? And I'm shocked sometimes that I am not ill more often with the way that I live my life. It's just chaos. So that was my little update. Like I said, I just wanted to talk to you about that because I glazed over it last week and I don't think I actually told you how I was getting on. And I did a little check-in on my Instagram the other day and people were like, oh my God, can you talk about the 10,000 steps a day a little bit more? Like I said, I'm going to bring it down, so I'll report back, see if I feel the same way with doing 8,000, 10,000. Sometimes it goes over, sometimes it has been going under, but that's only because but that's only if I've been really, really busy. Like I said, on a Wednesday, it's a joke. My Wednesdays are crazy. And sometimes I have struggled on a Wednesday. I struggle on a Friday because all I want to do is get to the pub. All I want to do now with the sun shining is get to the pub. So I'm like, where am I going to get this extra 4,000 steps from? Right, we've got to walk to the pub. We've got to use our initiative now. Can you be walking to the pub to get your steps in? Because they are all steps that count. Anyway, so like I said, I went out on Sunday, had a really good time. I had a very nice weekend of not really doing a lot, pottering around, just, making content, but not too much. Doing my garden, tidying my house up, just being an adult and enjoying my mortgage. And I'm looking around now and I'm getting an itch to start more DIY. I'm getting the scratch to get my ceilings plastered in the hallway and get, my carpet done and everything like that. So that's probably going to come at some point. We're obviously on a mad saving hype at the moment, but luckily my dad's in the trade, so nothing really costs me DIY wise. Nothing costs me an arm and a leg. I am quite fortunate in that. But I do know that I'm going to have to actually get somebody in to do the plastering above the stairs. I'm not going to be able to do that because it's above the stairs. Anyway, so this weekend I've got the quietest weekend for, I want to say, about 8 weeks. I've got no free weekends for 8 weeks. Number one, again, who pays for my lifestyle? Because I just hope for the best. I just put my card on or just send money and I'm like, fingers crossed, this is going to work. Who knows? And that always makes my mum laugh because she's like, why do you do that? And I'm like, because I don't believe in looking at my bank statement ever. I just don't. And so I've got a quiet weekend this weekend, which I'm going to take fully in my stride. Because like I said, I've got some really busy weekends coming up. And with the weather at the moment, my grass needs cutting. I said on my Patreon this week, I released an episode yesterday just as a single life girl check-in, what I've been up to, just a little bit of life update over on my Patreon because I like to keep them updated over there. And I said yesterday, I was like, I'm really in my grass era. I really love my grass. I was really disappointed the other day that I went out and there was a brown spot and I thought, that's making me really upset. I really don't like that. Apparently it's because it's near the patio slabs and I need to water it more. I need a watering can, that's what I need because my hose is such a faff. Anyway, so I said that on my Patreon. So there's a little, so as always guys, if you do want to know about my life updates and if you do want to know more in depth of how I got through certain things in my breakup, please come and join us on my Patreon. It's $4.50 a month. The link is in all of the bios. If you click on that link, you'll also see the link to my course. You'll see the link to my YouTube, so you can watch me do these podcast episodes or just put them in the background of your house if you just need some company. That was kind of the concept around getting on YouTube. It was like the other day when I was getting ready to go out, I was watching Olivia Atwood's podcast on the TV. Eventually I would love to be able to invest in a good camera, a good mic. In fact, my mic's actually all right, but invest in a good camera so then the quality is better. And do you know what I get asked to do all the time, day in the lives? You would get sick of me. And you would be like, oh my God, this girl has got such a regimented routine. Why does she never differentiate from the routine? Might look into doing something like that. I've literally, just as I said that, I've looked over and looked on my vision board and I've got a camera with a proper recording lens and microphone on. So who knows? We might get into doing something like that. We might not. For now, I enjoy the fact that I can make short form content from my long form content. So it's actually really good and it works really well. So anyway, this week I'm going to talk to you about, do you ever get over the fact your ex has moved on? question I get asked all the bloody time, because we all want to know that when you have gone through a breakup and your ex has moved on, you want to know if you get over it. You do, of course you do. You want to know if like all the pain and the heartache and the sleepless nights are all going to be worth it. And I think it's one thing when you go through a breakup and your ex leaves. It's another thing. You obviously go through another round of heartbreak when you find out that your ex has moved on. It's really, really tough. And I didn't think I was ever going to get over it, and I want to address some certain things in this like episode, but I genuinely didn't think I was going to get over my ex moving on. I think I had like a little bit of like a shit end of the deal, to be fair, because my ex moved on so quickly. And obviously if you are here from, you know, listening to my podcast from early days, you know that it was somebody that had been brought up as a name in our relationship that has caused me a little bit of a concern whilst we were still together. If you're new here, my ex got into a relationship 8 months after he left me, and it was with a girl that I had raised some concerns, like I said, whilst we were together. So I had it like full tenfold blow, because it was like everything that I didn't want to happen happened, and everything that I thought... do you know what? It wasn't even that like everything that I thought would happen when we were together, because I never accused him when we were together of anything realistically with this girl. But deep down, I knew I probably should have done, but I was petrified of him thinking I was accusing him of doing something he wasn't. So always trust your gut, girls. Always. Never, never, never ignore your gut instinct. Ever. I have gut feelings about things now, and they practically guide me through my entire life. And I will never ignore my gut, ever. And I say it quite a lot. But if you are new here, that is kind of like in a nutshell. Oh, and they're still together. So it's like 3 years. Well, I'd say like 2.5 years. And they're still together. So I am talking a lot on this episode from experience of... do you ever get over it? Can you rely on sort of my experience? Yes, because it's taking me... the whole time I was getting over my breakup, I was also processing the fact that he had a girlfriend, which was rough. But also I'm going to add in some mindset tips, which is obviously what I love talking on, and some practical tips as well, because I want to make the podcast episode informative, but also like not just me talking about my experiences. I want to be able to give you something positive to go away and think about, to, you know, work towards when you're thinking about, will I ever get over this? And I'm just going to extend a big fat virtual hug to anybody that is listening to this, that is going through a breakup where your ex has moved on and you are fully aware of it, because I was fully aware of it. If I wanted to see anything, I could find it. It was very much like in my face, and it's horrible. And one of the hardest things I think I've ever had to process was the fact that he had moved on so quickly. And I mean, everybody heals differently, but I really took this really hard, and I would never ever inflict it on anybody else. And I'll probably ask the weirdest questions when I meet somebody new, because I definitely don't want to be in a relationship with somebody who is just left their ex for a very long time, or ex-fiance in my case. You know, I would never want to be the girl that was next, so close together, because I just know how it feels to be the girl that is sat there wanting answers and not getting them, because I was really told, and I'll go through this time and time again, that he had moved on, and he was telling me that, and he was telling me I needed to move on too. Anyway, so without further ado, guys, grab a drink if you're out on a walk. Make sure you're getting your 10k steps in. Or if you're just listening to this, or if you're watching this, then let's get into it together. So, the question being, do I ever get over my ex moving on? The answer, yes, you do. You do, because I did it. And I can sit here and I can say to you, you get over the fact that they have moved on. You work through the pain of them moving on, but you no longer compare yourself or your life to what they're doing, where they are in their lives. And This morning, if you follow me on my running account or my TikTok, I've posted 2 videos that are slightly different but the same. And I have spoken about this before, I know I have, because moving on doesn't mean that you have somebody new in your life. The people that look at you and they say she's not moved on because she's not got a new boyfriend are the smallest minded people and have absolutely no business being in your business. And that is how I see it. They do not have any business asking you that question, for one. I don't understand why people are so nosy. I have literally said this on my Patreon episode this week. People have so much chest these days. I wouldn't ask somebody, knowing that, you know, especially with, if like my case, that I put a lot of content out online. Everybody knows that I've like been through a breakup. People that like know of me, like, I just don't understand where the confidence comes from with them to sit in a public place and ask me if I've moved on and who I'm with. It baffles me. I'm not saying that like my close friends, of course, like when my close friends come over and we're chatting about it and we're talking through certain things, of course they're going to ask. But people that barely know you and are just assuming that you haven't moved on because you haven't got a new person in your life, whether that's a boyfriend or a girlfriend, I don't get it. I don't understand. And I mean, I'm self-aware and I'm hopefully becoming more self-aware of myself the more that I do like go through my healing process. But like, I think I probably used to do that in the past. I think I probably was one of those people when I was in a relationship and I saw someone had gone through a breakup. I was probably one of those people that did say, you know, have you found somebody new? But now I've been on the receiving end of that. And the narrative is like, for example, with me, the narrative is, oh, Lou's not moved on because she's not got somebody new. Lou's not got a new boyfriend, so she can't have moved on. She still must be hung up on her ex. And I did say this in my Instagram caption, like, caveat that I understand why people think I'm not over my ex, because I do what I do. But if you actually listen to my podcast episode, you'd know that the main reason why I'm doing this is because of how I felt, and I wanted to validate how other people were feeling, and that I struggle to find content online, which means other people are going to struggle to find content online. I don't sit here and slate my ex every single week because I'm not over him. That is not the case. And it makes me laugh sometimes because people do think that of me, which is fine. They can do, you know, I'm not expecting people to sit and listen to an hour-long episode, you know, who aren't going through a breakup and are just being nosy. I understand that. But why don't people say, oh my God, have you seen, for example, take me for example, oh my God, have you seen Lou? She's got a new house. She's like really moving forward with her life. Or, oh my God, have you seen Lou's with new people? Like, she's managed to go out and meet new friends off the back of her breakup. Like, she's really moving forward with her life. No one says that. No one says that. Then honestly, crazy to me. Why? What that is the same as moving on. Your life's moving forward without your ex, so you are moving on. And the only part of your life that hasn't moved on as such is the fact that you haven't got anybody new. However, no one turns around and says, oh, did you see Lou? She's having a really great time being single. Because I've spoken about this before, but people will project their own insecurities onto people. I used to do it. Again, being self-aware in a relationship, I would look at my single friends and be like, that is literally my idea of hell. I want to, you know, go to IKEA at the weekends. I want to buy a new Hoover, you know. I want to be doing all that stuff. And when my friends had been single and had come to me and said, I'm doing X, Y, and Z, I'd be like, oh my God, that is my idea of hell. I never said to them like, oh my God, like you are thriving being single. Like you look like you are having the best time. You look like you've come on leaps and bounds. You look like your life is completely changed, completely transformed. No one's saying that. Well, they're not saying it around me anyway. And people need to start saying that, because you can move forward with your life. And yes, you do get over the fact that your ex has moved on. And I am not saying this about my ex, but Your ex might not have bought a house. He might not have made new friends. He might not have visited new places. You know, he might not have, or she might not have done all of those things, but they've got a new partner. So automatically, society just presumes they've definitely moved on. And then you become the psycho ex, the ex that can't move on, the ex that can't get over it. You become all these things when actually your life compared to them, actual like milestone wise, has come on leaps and bounds ahead of your ex. And like, I always say it's not a competition, but finding somebody new after going through a breakup is the smallest thing that you have to worry about, because you are always going to meet new people. Buying a house on your own and maintaining a house by yourself is the hardest friggin' thing ever. That is huge. It's not a case of just getting on a dating app, meeting somebody and falling in love. It's the easiest part. They've done the easiest part. You are getting over what feels like the worst part of your breakup because they've moved on and you don't understand how. But you have to look inward, because you have to then remember, hold on a second, they might have met somebody new. And I was kind of like, this is how I thought about it, because my ex met somebody new. And then I think probably like 5 months later, I moved into my new house. And my God, I was so happy to be in my own space and I was so proud. And somebody actually said something really nice to me the other day. They were like, you had the big house, you had, you know, the white picket fence, you had like the shiny cars on the drive, and you've downsized and you can tell how proud you are of this house. And that is so true. And no one's ever said that to me before. No one's ever said like, you can see how proud you are of your house, and it's so nice. And I am so proud of my house and I love it to bits. And I loved my old house, but there was no emotion attached to it. I always say this, there was just no emotion attached to it, because I just knew that we were never going to be there forever. And if you ever went into my old house, you'd know that it was like very much like a shell. There wasn't loads in there. We didn't really make it very homely because we didn't plan on being there for very long. But I know that when you are asking these questions, and I know that like the panic sets in when people are saying, oh, you do know that he's got a new girlfriend, which I came up against all the time, I still do. And it can feel like rejection, and it can feel like they're moving on faster than you, and it can make you feel like you need to do something that you're not comfortable with, and it feels like they've replaced you, and it really, really stings, and it friggin' hurts, and it's really hard. But I obviously wanted to start off this episode by saying that like you are not stuck there forever. It does hurt. I'm not going to be able to turn around to you and say like this is going to make you feel better, but I can sit in front of you and I can say it does get better. You have to really sit with how you're feeling, and you have to know that you are allowed to feel the way that you are feeling. You're allowed to feel like they have rejected you. You're allowed to feel like, you know, they've replaced you, but don't sit in those feelings for too long, because you will come out of it. And I think the more you listen to somebody who is telling you, you know, I came out the other side of an engagement, 14-year relationship, him moving on 8 months after leaving me, he's still with his girlfriend now. This is the reason why I tell my story, because I wanted somebody to tell me their story, and I wanted to know when I was crying on the kitchen floor that I was going to take a breath, and that I was going to be able to get up for the next day and work on myself again the next day. And that's what you have to remember, and what you have to bear in mind is that this is only temporary. It's horrible, but it is only temporary, and you will get to a point like I am now where I'm so not bothered about what they're doing, who they're with, who they're dating. I always say that like, would I have been as affected if he had got with somebody that wasn't sort of a known name when we were together? I don't know how I would have felt. I still probably would have felt a bit like, oh, who's this? You know, it hurts more because it feels like there's more betrayal when you know them. And I don't know how I would feel if it was, say, like 2 years later. You just don't know. But I wanted to make this episode to assure you that you do come to terms with it and you do get over it. And there are things that I have done that might be slightly controversial. I'm going to start off with my controversial stuff first. I began saying yes when people felt the need to show me photos. So weird. I've never asked to see photos. They've just kind of been shown to me. Or I've seen them, for example, still having family members on Facebook. I saw photos of them at Christmas together. And sometimes you can't escape it. And, if you're not in a place where you feel like you can delete them on social media, you are going to see it a little bit more. And there'll be certain advice on the line, like to limit contact, limit seeing the photos and stuff. But I am going to say, the more I saw them together, the more I accepted it. It was really strange. To begin with, horrible. Like, I escaped it. I definitely think if you are really suffering, like, would I have been able to see them together in the November that they said that they were together? Absolutely not. Like, no. But the more I have had time to heal, the more people will say, like, oh, have you seen this? Or like, have you seen this? Do you want me to show you this? And I just think, like, yeah, I do. Yeah, show me. The more I've exposed myself to them being together, the more I've accepted it. I think when people run away from their exes moving on, I think the shock will come when they finally find out that they've moved on. And I'm very much like I like to be able to control my emotions. And I know for a fact, I think I've said this when I saw him at the races, they were together. I know for a fact if I had not exposed myself to certain photos or information, then seeing them together at the races would have absolutely crucified me. So yes, controversial opinion there that seeing photos of them together will hurt. And like I said, do not self-harm yourself by going and looking when you are at the first forefront of your breakup. I only started doing this about a year and a half after we split up, where it was kind of getting to the point where I was like, oh, maybe they're not going to split up. Maybe they're the real deal now. I think they're going to stay together. When I had to start accepting that, I sort of put myself in situations where I would see them together, And then like seeing them together at Christmas on Facebook didn't bother me. I was like, they've been together for nearly 2.5 years. Like, it's not the first photo I've seen. It's probably not going to be the last, But that is my controversial opinion. However, if you are in the trenches, what I call it at the moment, if you are fully in the trenches, removing emotional triggers for you is so important. I think the way that I stopped hurting myself was turning off my archived on my Facebook, you were doing this 3 months ago on my Facebook, this was what was going on 2 years ago on my Facebook, and my gallery settings. I removed all of the emotional triggers. I removed photos. I didn't look at photos of me and him. I didn't look at certain things. I had jewelry that I still owned that was from him. I removed certain things like that out of my life. You don't have to burn them. If that's your vibe, then fair. Just do it safely. But you need to stop reopening emotional wounds. This is very strange. Because in February, I had a therapy session and we did a checking in session, which I really like because I love being able to see my progress. And my therapist was like, go back to a time where you and your ex had, and it was a time where you thought, this is the most unreal thing. I'm so in love. I went back to our 10-year anniversary and I remember sitting on the beach in a place called Portmaddock. We used to go to Wales every single weekend with his family. It was there and Harlech were such special places to us and special places to him. And he took me there and it was so nice. And I remember sitting there and we'd got a bottle of champagne on our beach that we used to call it like our beach near where his parents' caravan was. And we sat there and I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm so in love. Like, this is the best thing ever. And I still could find photos of that time. I'd know when it was because we got together in 2008. So it was in 2018. My therapist was like, tonight, go home and expose yourself to a photo and see what emotions that brings up and let me know. Brought up nothing. I wasn't emotional about it. I was like, yeah, there was a time in my life where I was really in love. I then didn't associate that with like he replaced me, he's moved on, he does this with her, he does that with her. None of that emotion came up. It was just like, oh, hey, like, it was like, oh, that was just a time in my life where I was really in love. And those places were amazing. Will I go back there? No. But will I find that connection with somebody else? Of course, because I was so in love, and I know that I can be that in love. So I know that I'm going to find that love again, because it was my love towards him, and I'm going to find those feelings again. And she was like, see, look how far you've come, because you've not said, was that even real? Or, you know, it was 10 years, you know, he did X, Y, and Z in those years. None of that came up. It was irrelevant to me. It was just like, oh, that was just something that I lived through. And it was a time that I lived through, and it was quite nice. So you can check back in with yourself. Again, I'm going to say, do not do this if you are in the trenches. This is kind of like something that I want you to be able to look forward onto. Obviously, if you are in that stage and you are, you know, a year, 2 years post breakup, and you're finding this really helpful. But if you're going through the trenches, do not do this. Don't go and dig out a photograph of when you spent 10 years together. That would have sent me over the edge. So just be careful. And I think the best piece of advice that I have got is create a structure in your day. Grief thrives in chaos. So build little anchors into your day, like going for a walk in the morning, listening to a certain podcast, going to do a workout. Structure your day, because the one thing you're going to lose is structure, because your life no longer involves somebody else. You don't have to think about somebody else. You don't have to do anything with somebody else. And I pretty much took on the role of housewife in my relationship. So like, I would wake up in the morning and I'd think, right, has he got breakfast? Has he got lunch? What are we having for dinner? You know, have we got to go out and buy that? You know, that all went. I only had to look after me, and I didn't know how to just look after me. I knew how to look after me and one other. And so it took me a long time to create a structure in my day and create a routine that didn't revolve around anything that I used to do with my ex. And pouring back into me was really difficult. And I don't think a lot of people realize that how hard it is to be selfish when you are a selfless person. And I would say that I'm a pretty selfless person, and I've really, really struggled when people were saying to me, like, create a structure in your life, and I would be like, I don't want to, because it's not the structure that I wanted to create. And I think one of the main things that my therapist used to say to me is like, Lou, you don't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be a routine that you implement and you think, oh, I didn't read my book this morning, or like, oh, I didn't do that this morning. It doesn't have to be a routine whether you make up on one day and you have to stick to that. It's trial and error. Like, this is a new chapter of your life where you've never lived before. You've never lived this chapter ever. So it's trial and error. You have to make sure that you are not putting so much pressure on yourself. If something doesn't work, take it away, introduce something new. I will just say as well, just on this, if you're listening to this and you are fresh out of a breakup and your ex has got somebody new, limiting contact with them does work, but only when you do it on your own terms. Know what it's like and know what it feels like to completely cut contact. If that makes you feel anxious, do not do it. Go back to them, communicate with them. This isn't working. You know, I do a load of stuff on no contact because it was something that really drove me insane. When I was going through my breakup, everyone telling me to delete his number. It's just stupid advice. Stupid advice. Eventually, yes, delete his number. I haven't got my ex's number anymore. I have deleted it. And this is what I mean. This episode can relate to many different stages of your breakup, and I am, you know, going back to my content 2 years ago, I would be telling you about no contact from my personal opinion at the stage of the breakup that I was at then. I'm now talking to you from a stage of like 3 years of healing. Have I deleted his number? Yes, I have. You know, do I have him on any forms of social media? No. Can he contact me? No. I would hope not, you know. And there's little things that you can do. And I always say this to my friends that are going through breakups and stuff, like, just mute them. If you don't want to get rid of them, just mute them. Archive their messages so they don't come up in your WhatsApp feed, you know. You can do things like that. You are not being bitter. And it used to drive me insane because people would be like, she's so jealous, she's so bitter. No, you're protecting your peace. There is a huge difference. A huge difference. So now I'm going to talk to you about your mindset, because this is my favorite topic to talk on. Obviously, everybody knows that. And I feel like the real healing begins with your mindset. 1000%. Like if you can get hold of your mind, you can get hold of your healing. You can make some real good progress when you learn about how your mind works and why you are triggered by certain things, or why some things are upsetting you and other things aren't. Because you can do all these things and you can take all these steps, but if your mind is stuck in the past, you are going to feel like you are getting nowhere. The first mindset shift I want you to remember is that their relationship does not replace yours. It doesn't. And it won't do. And it was funny because I remember someone saying to me, like, wow, it's not going to replace your relationship for 14 years. They have to get 14 years under their belt. And it is so true. Their relationship doesn't replace yours. It doesn't make what you had fake. Their timeline is not a commentary on your worth. What they're doing and the fact that they're in a new relationship does not mean that you are not worthy of being in a relationship with them or being in a relationship at all. And I know that people will say, like, oh, the relationship just ran its course. It might have been the case that it was run its course. It might have been a case where you just drifted apart. Mine wasn't. My friend said to me the other day, I genuinely don't know how you got through your breakup. You were under the impression that the relationship was fine. And yes, I was. And so I had to focus in on the fact that, like, the new relationship didn't replace what we had. It didn't replace it. And I know that it wouldn't. And I know that it won't. And I can't speak for my ex, but I always like to think that, like, he doesn't think that I think that all of our relationship was bad, because it wasn't. It was just a horrendous breakup. And I think sometimes it's so easy to sit there and convince yourself that what they now have is better, and it's not. And I've done an episode on this on my Patreon. It's just new to them. And you're going to have all the new relationships, and you're going to have all the newness of the new people coming into your life, and you're going to meet new people, but it's just new to them at the moment. New relationship does not mean better. The grass does not mean it's always greener. You know, you have to remember that. The second thing, and one of the best mindset shifts that I have remembered whilst, you know, watching him get into a new relationship, was that jealousy is normal. And it is okay to feel jealous, but do not feed that jealousy. Do not feed into that jealousy, because what you don't want to do is hurt yourself more. If you start saying, you know, oh, they won't last long, or like, she's done this or she's got that and he said this and he said that, you're just feeding something that is causing you pain. You're basically building a narrative around how you're feeling about him getting into a new relationship, when realistically you want to work through it. And so you shouldn't feel ashamed of being jealous at all. I was very jealous, and I will hold my hands up and say that I was incredibly jealous to begin with, that I was getting such a cold side of my ex and she was getting such a warm side. And I had that warm side, and I knew what that warm side felt like, and I wasn't getting that, and it wasn't mine to have anymore. And I was incredibly jealous. When I broke it down, that was obviously like when I first started going through my breakup, but when I broke it down, the jealousy faded, because I realized that I wouldn't want to be with somebody who had the capability of acting in the way that my ex acted, and the things that he did. I wouldn't want to be with somebody like that. So eventually the jealousy does fade, and it just kind of doesn't even fade into like pity. It's not even that. It's just a, like, I hope it works kind of thing. Like, I hope that, you know, behind closed doors, he doesn't know what I'm doing. I don't know what he's doing. He could also be sat in a therapy room working through the things that he needs to work through. I don't know. I cannot speak for him. I don't know what he's doing. And so I think that was like a really important thing mindset wise for me to remember, was that, you know, I'm allowed to feel jealous because you're human, you're normal, and people are like, oh my God, are you jealous of that? Yeah, I am. I actually am. And people are like, oh. If you own an emotion, people don't know what to do with it. So it's like, yeah, I am jealous of her. So I'm like, at the time, it would be like someone asking me, and I'd be like, yeah, I am jealous. I am really jealous, because my life changed overnight, and I woke up in the morning and thought that I was going to go to sleep with my fiance, and I didn't. He packed his bags and he never came back. So am I jealous of the girl that has now got that side of him? Yeah, I am. Now, obviously, I don't feel like that, but at the time, that was what my answer would be. And people are like, okay, because you've owned it and you've named it, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just don't feed it. Do not give it a narrative, because then you are feeding it, you're feeding the beast, you know? The next thing that I have found that mindset wise helped was you have to stop romanticizing your relationship. My God, my Instagram would tell a different story if you went back on my relationship posts. I romanticized my life and my relationship tenfold on the internet. That now it's like a running joke with me and my best friend Preston. And he's like, do you remember when you used to put house emojis and love hearts and say it was the best thing ever? And I'm like, I don't know why I opened myself up to this criticism or why I've shown him these posts, but it's kind of a way of being like, oh my God, this was me in my old life and how I'm not going to post going forward. And you might still want to do that, and that is totally fine. It's just kind of like a running joke with us. But memory is selective. You have to remember that your memory is selective. It's not going to pull out all the arguments you had. It's not going to pull out, you know, the night where you don't know where they went. It's not going to pull out the night that, you know, you felt awful because you knew that he cheated on you. It's not going to pull out all of those. It's going to pull out your highlight reel. It's going to pull out all the best times. It's going to pull out the times where, you know, you went to a certain place. Like for me, it's going to pull out all the times that we went to Newquay together and talked about raising our children there. It's going to pull out all of those. The highlight reel is the worst. And I remember laying in bed, like actually clutching my chest, being like, I am never going to get this relationship ever again. This is going to be me now. I'm going to be old with cats. It's not the case. It is not the case. You have to be honest. You almost have to balance the nostalgia with the truth. And it's really hard because you have to pull bad points out of a person that you once loved, and you don't want to admit to yourself that they have become this person. But I promise you, the quicker you do this, the quicker you will sit and think, there were some bad points. There were bad times. That argument was really bad. He did make me feel like that then. And all of a sudden, you will realise that, yes, your memory will pull on the good things, and it will be like, hey, do you remember when you did that? Do you remember when you were so happy when you'd done that? Do you remember when you were so happy when you found a holiday home in Newquay and you were going to do this and this and that? I'm going to put that to the forefront of your memory, and what you're going to do is forget the fact that he did X, Y, and Z here a year ago. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, all I'm thinking about is the good stuff. It's horrible. And it will literally crucify you. You have to get control of your mind. Remember, the memory is like Instagram stories. You only post your best parts. You only post your best bits. I mean, I've post pictures of me crying on the internet, so I don't. But on my personal account, I only post the good things. I'm not going to post when I've had a rough day. Had a really rough day today with me sitting there looking like Stig of the Dump. No, your memory is the same. Your memory posts your highlight reels, and it will post them every now and again. It'll be like, oh my God, remember when you did this? You were really happy then, and now you're really sad. Control it. You're really sad because you're being shown that this person isn't who they said they are, and they probably will never go back to being that person, which I also take a lot of comfort in. The last one I wanted to talk about, I've been talking to my friend about this quite recently, is that please don't ever forget that this future is yours to shape. You have complete control over your future, and why you are sat there thinking that you are never going to have anything that you dreamed of with your ex in your future is actually ludicrous. And when you break it down like that, it actually sounds so silly, but I did it all the time. I am never going to have this. I am never going to have that. Says who? You've not lived your future. You haven't got a crystal ball. You can't say, I'm never going to have. It's a lie. You're lying to yourself, because you haven't got evidence of that. How do you know you're never going to have that again? How do you know that you're never going to meet somebody that's going to be 10 times better? You just don't know. Stop saying to yourself that you're never going to have what you had. Stop saying to yourself that your future is ruined. Stop saying to yourself that the future you built with them isn't going to exist. It can exist. If you want, you can have the same future as you had with your ex, but with somebody else. That's not anything bad. You know, you can still get married, you can still have the kids, you can still have the house. It's going to look a little bit different. You're probably not going to live in the same house as you lived in with your ex. And it will look different, and you will go to different places, and you might have different children's names. You might have a different outlook on what your wedding is going to look like. You can still have that future. So stop telling yourself that it's never going to happen just because you have lost the person that you wanted to do it with. You will find another person, trust me. Trust me. And so just to finish off, the question, how do you actually move on? You choose yourself every single day. Every single day, you make sure that you are showing up for yourself. That doesn't mean you need to get up at 5 a.m., go to a Pilates class, go do your 10K steps, go out, start a business, have a glow up, dye your hair a different color, all in one day. It means that you show up for yourself in a small way every single day. Does that mean that you eat a proper meal? Does that mean you introduce vegetables into your meal because you've been living on pizza because you can't bear to be in the kitchen? I've been there. I've done it. You have to show up for yourself every single day, and you have to remember that it is you looking after you. That is how you move forward. Yes, you can do obviously all the practical things. You can limit the contact. You can limit the social media posts. You can do all of that, but you have to focus inward and remember that this life is yours now, and you get to recreate this whole new future, and it should excite you. And like I always say, if it doesn't excite you because you're in the trenches, that is fine. Come back to this episode, listen to it when you are out of the trenches, because I want it to relate to you. I want you to know that you get to this point where, you know, I'm looking at my month in June. I'm here the whole of June because I've got an event on pretty much every single weekend. July, August, I'm a free agent. I can literally go wherever I want. I can go and visit whatever country I want. I can go and visit whatever city I want. I can make plans with myself that I know that I'm going to be, you know, putting myself out of my comfort zone and meeting new people. And I'm not doing all of that because it is a reaction to my ex still being in a relationship. I didn't go out all the time as a reaction to the fact that my ex had left me for somebody else. I didn't do all of that as a reaction. Of course, like there were certain things that I did that was just like stemmed from it. But the more I realized that I needed to stop reacting to what he was doing and focus inward, is the more that I thought when someone said, "Oh, have you seen this?" I'd be like, "What? No, I haven't. Oh, sorry, I've just been really busy doing X, Y, and Z for myself. I've been really busy training for a marathon." And you have to remember that you get to do things that are going to set up the roots for your future. Everything that you do now, consciously think, how is this going to contribute to my future? Is this going to build the future that I want? It's hard because, of course, the future that you wanted has been taken away from you. But like I said, that doesn't mean you're never going to get it again. This future you, for now, and, you know, I'm a product of this, I've been single for 3 years. I want to be married. I want to have the relationship. I want the wedding. I potentially want the children. You know, I know that that's going to come. Everything I've done hasn't been because I'm like looking for the next person to have that future with. I'm taking my life year by year, and at the minute I'm building a future that really protects the single version of myself. And because that is the person that I'm growing into being at the moment, because I've taken a step back, looked inward and thought, this is the path that I've been put on. This is the path that I need to be on for the time being. And it's making me feel great because I feel positive about it. I'm not just thinking I'm never going to have the white picket fence ever again. Don't get me wrong, I don't really want a white picket fence anymore. I want a place in Ibiza and I want to live there. Again, that just proves how much I've moved forward with my life, because 2022 Lou, well, 2021 Lou would have swore blind that she would never leave the country and live abroad. Now, 2025 Lou, it's all I talk about. I want to live abroad. I want to live abroad. I want to live abroad. It's all I talk about. It's all I think about. It's all that is on that vision board to my left. I just want to finish with saying this. Moving on doesn't mean forgetting about them. Doesn't. And if their actions are still affecting your emotions, don't beat yourself up about it. You're not going to listen to this episode and you're not going to automatically think, I'm over it. That's not what's going to happen. This is what I mean. Being able to move forward when your ex has moved on is a process, and it is something that you're going to have to step into, take seriously, and implement things into your day that you know, actually, looking at it, say if you journaled down everything you did that day and you muted the stories on Instagram, big fat tick, that is a tick against you moving forward with being able to cope with the fact that they've moved on. The more you become aware of what you're doing and your actions, the more you will realize how much you are actually feeding into your future as well. Because when you go through a breakup, you doubt yourself because you don't trust yourself, because why would you? You don't trust anybody. You have to rebuild the trust with yourself first. And that will solidify the foundations of you building this future where you come first. Because ultimately, that's what you have now. You have you. And it's scary. And I always follow up when I say that statement with, it's scary, because it is. And sometimes I sit at home and I think, oh my God, I'm literally on my own. I have no one to pour my love into. Yes, I have my family and friends, different type of love. I pour all of that love into me at the moment. And I have like this thing in my head where I think that like I'm going to meet somebody and I've got all this big fat cup of love that I'm just going to be like, onto them and overwhelm them. You know, like I'm going to be like, I've been saving all of this love up and now I'm just so excited to give it to you, you know? So I hope this episode has helped. I hope that you've got some things to take away. I hope that even just listening to me and talking about my experience and talking about how I've managed to move forward with the fact that my ex has been in a relationship since he left me. Well, if you want to get technical, 8 months after he left me, but he's been in a relationship ever since we broke up pretty much. And it has been really tough and I understand how tough it is. So if you do want to contact me and talk through anything that I've said on this episode, then please let me know. My DMs, email, always open, and I will just chat away to you if you just want to kind of like just offload onto me. And like I always say, I'm available on Patreon for a more in-depth chat. There's more in-depth episodes over there. I have, like I said, just uploaded a life update over there with some things on that I wanted to just talk through about being thick-skinned, going through like being single, having rumours said about you, how to cope with that. So if that is something that interests you, then like I said, just click on the links in all of my bios. If not, I will see you back here next Friday for an hour-long episode. Look after yourself, guys. Bye!